Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to this very amazing session. It is a GDPI topic, and we are going to discuss an important topic like COVID-19. Is India vaccination ready? So I would like to invite all my students for this particular amazing session. Please join me in along with Dr. Hemanth Kalyan, whom we have here. And before I start off, just wanted to introduce myself and Dr. also. My name is Harpreet Kaur Dodi. I've done my master's in English literature. I have a diploma in journalism. I have 16 years of teaching experience. I have trained students for exams like the CAT, MAT, XAT, SNAP, PGCET, banking, GRE, GMAT, SAT, ACT, and TOEFL. Today, I'm an educator on hashtag CAT Live Daily. All those who wish to subscribe for the CAT examination, you have two kinds of subscriptions. One is the plus and the other one is the iconic. If you take the 12-month subscription, you have to pay 17,500. 24-month subscription, you have to pay 21,000 rupees. For the iconic, it is 30,000 rupees. And if you use Core 10, you will get a further 10% discount. Use Core 10 referral, guys, in order to get a further 10% discount. And yes, going back to our guest for the evening. Yes, I can speak volumes about Dr. Hemanth Kalyan, but I would like to give you a sneak peek into his resume, which is here. Dr. Hemanth Kalyan is head of the Department Orthopedics Sports Medicine at Manipal Hospital, Bangalore. He has won many awards, and he has also featured 25 times on the Economic Times. He is a national and regional faculty with AO courses. MS Ortho, gold medalist of Mumbai University, first Indian to have completed a diploma in sports medicine, practicing advanced orthoscopy, trauma surgery at Bangalore since 27 years, guys. So that is a short preview of Dr. Hemanth Kalyan. Welcome, doctor, to this particular session. Good to have you here, and thank you for making time for us and for my students in order to get a first-hand information from a doctor about the COVID vaccination. So my first question to you, doctor, is India ready to face this vaccination challenge pan-India?
Thank you very much for having me here. And congratulations on selecting a very topical subject for your students. So this is a very interesting question because for a country to be vaccination ready, we have different arms of the chain which need to be put together, starting with the vaccine production, then the vaccine distribution, and then the actual on-the-ground reality of putting the vaccine in the arms of the individuals. And then we have another part called vaccine hesitancy, which I will touch upon. So the answer to this question would be in 4 parts. The first part would be vaccine production. So vaccine production, as you may or may not know, India is the largest producer of vaccines in the world. And we are the largest exporters of vaccines in the world, all countries put together. Now, if you look at the production itself, we have 2 vaccines which have already been approved by the ICMR, and they are already gone into the arms of people. And there are a few more in the pipeline. We have also started exporting the vaccine to neighboring countries like Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Maldives, and so on. So I can confidently say that as far as vaccine production is concerned, the facilities are well equipped, ramped up to meet with the demand locally as well as regionally. So I don't think vaccine production is an issue. Okay. The next thing is the vaccine distribution. Now, distribution is basically getting the vaccine from the plants to the various healthcare institutions in a manner in which the vaccine doesn't lose its potency, which is why the vaccines which have been developed for the Indian conditions are generally those which can be stored in a regular fridge, like your domestic fridge. some of the vaccines in countries like the United States have required dry ice temperature of minus 70 degrees, which is not very practical for our scenario. So the vaccine distribution in terms of logistics is the big stumbling block at the moment, because although the vaccine is there in the institutions, how to get them to the major cities? Now, there it can be airlifted from the major cities. It has to be transported to the various districts, taluks, and then ultimately to the villages. Because ultimately, the whole purpose of vaccination is to achieve something called herd immunity. So, herd immunity would be achieved. It is estimated that about two-thirds of the population need to be immune against COVID-19 for the pandemic to die. Because at that point in time, there will be no host available for the vaccine to survive, and the virus to survive. And the virus cannot survive on its own. It needs a host. So we are looking at two-thirds of the population of our country. And as you know, we are a country of 1.4 billion people. If you minus the kids who are not going to be given vaccine, those who are below 16, we are still left with approximately 1 billion people, and 60% of that is 600 million people. So, it's a huge logistic exercise. So the question is now, how are we going to distribute this? So the government has come up with a plan, like a priority list. The initial people will be the healthcare workers and the frontline workers. And then following that is the elderly people, and then those with comorbidities who are the more vulnerable group. And then finally, it would be released to the general population, which would be the majority, because India is a young country. Demographically, we have many more below 50s than above 50s, although the population of seniors is growing year on year. So when it comes to that stage, we are not clear whether it would be something which would be just bought off the market by the people, or whether it will still be supported by the government. Now, the other factor is that health is a state subject in India. So there will be some kind of a federal structure to this, like guidelines, but there will also be state-wise, priorities about how to go about it. Some states have actually announced that they would be doing a free vaccination status, like Tamil Nadu, for example. And I think UP or Bihar has also said that they would be giving free vaccine to all the citizens. In Karnataka, they have not made any such promise. The healthcare workers and the frontline workers are getting it free. Probably the senior citizens would be getting it free. But the economic part is not going to be a big barrier to the distribution, because it's all priced in international terms at below $3, which is about 200 to 220 rupees, which is affordable to most people. And I'm sure people who are below the BPL line would be getting it free. That is what we are expecting. So the distribution per se is a big stumbling block, because I think that no particular organization alone can do it on their own. So the government proposes to use the machinery that they use for conducting general elections in order to distribute the vaccine, in order to get the list ready, to have the list of eligible candidates for vaccine and distribute it through that. But now the question is that on their own is going to be a really tough job, and there is a growing feeling that there should be a public-private partnership in this, because a large part of India's healthcare is provided by the private sector. Almost 70% of healthcare comes from the private sector. So if the private players join hands with the government, it would be a great boost to the distribution of the vaccine. So at this point in time, the whole thing started with a great flourish, with the first dose being given to the healthcare professionals. At the moment, there are about 450,000 people who got it, but we are very, very long way away from the target. And although it is being done day on day, there's still a huge deficit in the number of people who need the vaccine. So I think distribution is something which needs to be worked out, and worked out quickly. There's got to be a plan in place, and the general feeling is that there should be a private-public partnership. The next part about training the personnel to actually give the vaccine. Now, this is not very difficult because it can be done by any nurse or even a lab technician can be trained to give the vaccine because it's a simple intramuscular injection. But there is a process of documentation of uploading it onto the app to make sure that everybody's got it. That it's also important that as of now, the policy is that whichever vaccine they get, the second dose should be the same as the first dose. So all that documentation should be done. That should be coordinated with the local health authorities. Like for example, in Bangalore, if someone gets a vaccine, BBMP should be aware that they've got the vaccine and they should have that particular record with them as a duplicate. So it's not just a matter of injecting, it's a matter of putting the whole record together. So that is something which I think is being worked out. And the first phase of the vaccine, it was quite seamless to see that record keeping done efficiently. Now the final part, which is the worldwide phenomenon, is something called as vaccine hesitancy. So this happens due to various reasons. Basically, many going to be a big hurdle in achieving herd immunity because we are talking of 60% of the population being vaccinated. Now, just to give you an idea, when we had the vaccine launched in healthcare workers, about 60% of the people said yes, and almost 40% of the people did not choose to take the vaccine immediately. So this vaccine hesitancy is a worldwide phenomenon. It is basically, there are various reasons for it. One of them is this social media boom, which, information spreads very quickly on social media and misinformation spreads more rapidly than information. So some little case of something going wrong somewhere and then it suddenly becomes viral on social media and then people feel that, is it safe for me? Then there are other issues like there was this question about one of the vaccines already released in India, whether they've gone through all the clinical trials. And the government of Chhattisgarh just a couple of days ago said that we will not receive this vaccine called Covaxin. They want only Covishield. The central government told them that no, it's assured to be free, safe for people to take. And so there was a little bit of a misunderstanding even at the government level. So basically, for people to cross, a lot of this misinformation is basically unfounded. It is essentially a safe thing, as we'll get into in the as we discuss. But vaccine hesitancy is very, very major hurdle, and education of people through mass media and people like ourselves and yourselves, ourselves being healthcare professionals and yourselves being educators, is going to be a big factor in making sure that we reach this goal of herd immunity. So I think, it's been a long answer to your question, but it needed to have all these various components for the understanding of the subject.
Thank you. Thank you so much for elaborating. So, in simple terms, what does the common man need to understand about the vaccine?
Yeah. So that is something which is really important. So most of these vaccines, what they do is they stimulate your immune response. So very basically, whenever there is a foreign protein given to the body, then the body recognizes it as fit, and over a period of time it recognizes it is that foreign, so that when that body is exposed to that again, it will immediately capture it and destroy it. So that would be the normal situation. Now let us say that someone gets a COVID-19 infection. So what happens there is that the amount of foreign material given to the individual is overwhelming. So by the time a person mounts the response to the the infection has already reached a pretty high proportion. So the antibody response of the person would be delayed by a few days or weeks, by which time COVID has already gained the upper hand. Now, what happens in the vaccine situation in the vaccine situation, a person is exposed to the COVID-19 vaccine virus or its components early on so that they have time to build up the antibody response so that body will already recognize that, oh, this is the foreign material. They have the antibodies ready and they are able to fight the infection efficiently. So in very simple terms, the COVID-19 vaccine is to prepare the body to mount the antibody response before the infection happens. So now your immune system is already primed and it's ready. Now you get the COVID-19 infection. The infection may be very mild because you already have an antibody response which will take care of that infection just like a common flu would be taken care of by your immune system. And secondly, if you do get it, it'll be very mild kind of symptoms. And the other advantage of vaccination is that most of the studies seem to suggest that you will not be infective to others. So what does the COVID-19 vaccine do? Number one, it protects you by building up your immune response. It is called an active immunity where your immune system will be stimulated to produce a response. And B, it will help to protect others. So your family members and your community around you, say that your co-workers or your fellow students, etc., will also be protected because you would not be a carrier to them. So it's important to protect you and to protect others. And that would be the basis of promoting herd immunity, vaccine-induced herd immunity, which is like what has been achieved in polio. So if you take polio, for example, why is India polio-free? Because the whole population, everybody has received the vaccine so that tomorrow the polio virus does not have a host in which it can cause disease.
Yeah.
That is what it is. It cannot multiply and cause disease. So we are hoping that similar thing can be achieved by the COVID-19 vaccine in principle.
Yeah, coming to my third question, as a doctor, have you been vaccinated and what was your experience?
Yes, so we were one of the, because being exposed to COVID cases all the time, the government thought it's a priority to immunize the healthcare workers. And on the 16th of January, the vaccine was launched by the Prime Minister Pan India in Delhi. And on the 17th, I received a dose of the vaccine. That is because the hospital I work with, that is Manipal Hospital, was one of the 3 hospitals selected on that particular day for receiving the vaccine. So we had 2,700 of our staffers receiving the vaccine, including doctors, including nursing staff, including lab technicians, including the administrative staff, the housekeeping staff and support staff. So all told, 2,700 people from our hospital received the vaccine on that day, which was 17th of January. We received the first dose. So personally, my experience was very smooth. I mean, I received the vaccine on the Sunday, the 17th, 18th morning at 5:30. I walked 5 kilometers, and then the rest of the day I worked for 14 hours in the day, and absolutely no side effects apart from a very small, injection pain in the arm is negligible. So I would say most of my colleagues from their experiences did have a pretty smooth sailing after the vaccine. A few of them did develop a fever type of response, which we do see after all vaccines. So, even children, when they get the immunization, it's not unusual that they get a fever response. So yes, some of them did get a fever response, but the vast majority of people had no trouble. And in our setup, we did not have a single serious adverse reaction.
Fine.
So I can say from personal experience, it was a good experience.
Okay. So post taking the vaccine, what are the safeguards one needs to take? Do we need any safeguards? Are there any side effects?
I think you raised a very important point, Harpreet, because one should not think that just because you received the vaccine that, you can just be let free. So world over, it has been recognized that even though you might be immunized, it doesn't stop you from your social responsibility of maintaining the precautions. So until that pandemic is truly a thing of the past, the three things, one is the masking, and second is the do gaz ki duri, that's the social distancing, and the hand hygiene and face hygiene, which is talked about every single day, has to be followed. There's no doubt about it. The other reason it needs to be followed is because looking at your face, nobody is going to know whether you're vaccinated or not vaccinated. And it's impossible for me to be without a mask on the road and say, someone asks me, why aren't you wearing a mask? And say, oh, I've been vaccinated. And how does one monitor this? So it's very important that even after the vaccination, as a social responsibility and as a responsibility to others, the masking is important, the social distancing is important, and the hand hygiene is important. So the public health issues have to be dealt with in a public way. The vaccine is a very, very important step in achieving this, because once most people are immunized, the need for hospitalization will be less. It'll become like a flu. People won't be scared of it. They'll be able to lead their normal lives with just a few precautions. But I want to stress here that don't think that the day you receive the vaccine, the next day you're safe. It's not the case. Even after receiving the vaccine, you need 4 to 6 weeks for your immune response to develop. And for you to really get the immunity will take about 6 weeks after the first dose, and the second dose will be given about 6 to 8 weeks after the first dose. You can say around 2 months or 2.5 months after both the doses, you're absolutely, you should have a good immunity at that point.
Right. Yeah. So what are the problems India is likely to face on account of the mutating virus, the new dimension that we are hearing about, the mutation part?
Yes, Harpreet. So I think this is, the viruses they are the simplest life forms, viruses. And basically the more specialized the life form is, like you and me are the highest life form as human beings, where our cells are very specialized. The virus is a very simple type of an organism. And the thing is, simple organisms can multiply very, very rapidly. That's one. And they can change their form very rapidly. So, you and I cannot change your face or your height after you're an adult very easily, but the virus can change themselves completely and very rapidly. So this change of the virus form is called as mutation, and it is known that all viruses mutate themselves. Now, when you mutate, those mutations will be like cousin sisters. So they won't be completely unrelated to the original COVID-19. So if you have sisters, maybe cousin sisters, they'll have some common genetic link and some which is slightly different. And basically, the thought is that most of the vaccines will protect against some of the mutant forms as well. Now, from what it looks like, the early indicators are that although we've seen mutant forms in the UK and in South Africa, which have really caused havoc and caused a big second wave and third wave of infection, in India, we haven't seen that yet. And the numbers in India are steadily falling all across the country. The hospitalization numbers are going down. There are states which are reporting 0 deaths, which is great. The number of new cases is coming down. The cure rate is going about 99%. Fatalities are very low. So the outlook is definitely looking good. And at this point in time, we are not, although as a healthcare community, we are totally prepared and vigilant for the mutant forms. I don't expect it to be as big a problem in India as it is, say, in the UK. And, I think as a community, we are exposed to viruses, and it's estimated by the age of 5, a child in Bangalore would have been exposed to 300 viruses. So generally, maybe our immune system has learned to, deal with viruses and their mutant forms from a very young age. So that might work in our favor. This is anecdotal at the moment. It's not supported by research. but the feeling is that probably the mutant forms won't be a very big challenge in India.
Okay, fine. So just to round off, any other advice you would like to give my students and any other wise words that we could hear from you, Doctor?
Yeah, so I think that this pandemic has been a great lesson to mankind in general. And the takeaways from the pandemic are, first of all, is respect nature, because we have seen that the environmental degradation and environmental abuse is at the root of many of these pandemics.
Yeah.
So we have to respect nature and respect creator for preserving our environment and doing sustainable development. So that, I think, that is the first lesson from the pandemic. The second lesson from the pandemic is the importance of simple hygiene. You know, a simple thing like hand washing. I don't think you need to stop washing hands thoroughly just because COVID-19 is over. A simple task of hand washing after you come home, first thing you can do a good 15-second hand wash. And, namaste instead of shake hands is so very useful, because in namaste, it's a very beautiful Indian form of greeting which does not exchange viruses,
Yes.
whereas the handshake exchanges many more viruses, and namaste is a zero exchange. So I think that we can definitely adopt this as a form of greeting, and the youngsters, if they do it, maybe a wave or an elbow or a namaste would be a great way for promoting hygiene as a society. That's the next thing. The third thing I think is that as educated young people, it's our responsibility to educate our own people whom we come in contact with, our nears and dears and colleagues and peers, about the importance of herd immunity and about each one's responsibility towards achieving that goal. So do get vaccinated when your turn comes. Do your bit to dispel this vaccine hesitancy. Do your bit to promote awareness about this amongst your community. And I think if we all do that, we'll set up a big chain reaction, and then we can achieve our target of herd immunity, and all of us can go back to maskless, communication in the future, and get back to where we were, but wiser and cleaner and more respectful of the environment. So that would be my concluding message to them.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Hemanth Kalyan, for that very, very insightful advice. And I hope we'll all take this advice very seriously and follow all the norms that you have shared with us. And thank you for giving your valuable time in order to share this time with us. And thank you once again. And thank you to all my students. All the best. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.